It is as if Barack Obama had suddenly welcomed back Jeremiah Wright, Pastor John Hagee, for whose endorsement John McCain had lobbied, had blamed Hurricane Katrina on divine vengeance because New Orleans was going to hold a gay pride parade. A week ago, Hagee said he was wrong about that. Yesterday, Hagee said, no, I was right. It was because New Orleans was going to hold a gay pride parade. Our third story tonight, the pastor double standard, anything but pastoral. The Reverend John Hagee now retracting his previous retraction of comments about other Americans who deserve to die. Here are the nationally broadcast comments Hagee made before Mr. McCain had sought his endorsement.
Thank you, Pastor.
I believe that New Orleans had a level of sin that was offensive to God, and they were recipients of the judgment of God for that. The newspaper carried the story in our local area that was not carried nationally, that there was to be a homosexual parade there on the Monday that the Katrina came. And the promise of that parade was that it was going to reach a level of sexuality never demonstrated before in any of the other gay pride parades. So I believe that the judgment of God is a very real thing.
And came Hagee's correction of those remarks, but then yesterday, pushed by a caller on a conference call for why he had backed off them, Hagee said he hadn't. He said that, quote, God always punishes unconfessed sin. McCain apparently also writing off the Catholic vote, Mr. Hagee having referred to that religion in his writings as, quote, a great whore. And there's a second religious problem for Mr. McCain tonight. The senator today went to a New York firehouse in New York City, stopping at a plaque honoring firefighters who died on 9/11. This almost exactly 2 years after McCain sought the political blessings of a man who had said that those who died on 9/11 probably deserved it. Jerry Falwell, who voiced his hatred of America on national TV while New York firefighters were still searching for their dead.
What we saw on Tuesday, as terrible as it is, could be minuscule if in fact God continues to lift the curtain and allow the enemies of America to give us probably what we deserve. The abortionists have got to bear some burden for this, because God will not be mocked, and when we destroy 40 million little innocent babies, we make God mad. I really believe that the pagans and the abortionists and the feminists and the gays and the lesbians who are actively trying to make that an alternative lifestyle, the ACLU, People for the American Way, all of them who tried to secularize America, I point the finger in their face and say, you helped this happen.
Just 2 years ago, well after the world knew, Falwell said America probably deserved 9/11. McCain sold off the integrity that once led him to call Falwell an agent of intolerance and embraced that man as a friend, compatriot, and ally. If you want to argue that neither of these men was McCain's pastor, McCain has also yet to renounce his, quote, spiritual guide, Rod Parsley, who says America was founded to destroy Islam. Let's bring in MSNBC political analyst Eugene Robinson, also, of course, columnist and associate editor of The Washington Post. Good evening, Gene.
Evening, Keith.
All right, Hagee in a moment, but first, Obama's pastor turned out to have analogized the U.S. to al-Qaeda, and Obama renounced the comparison immediately, and then renounced the man within 6 weeks. McCain's guy blamed the U.S. for 9/11. McCain does the photo op at the firehouse today. I don't know if anybody else put these two things together today. This is one of the great political magic tricks of all time, is it not?
It really is. You look at those clips and listen to what Hagee has actually said. The guy is a complete lunatic, and he makes Jeremiah Wright sound fairly mainstream. Yet McCain seems to get away with this without, denouncing and rejecting and renouncing and dejecting or whatever, all the things that Obama had to do with Jeremiah Wright.
And about Hagee, it's with this latest switch again, this is like watching Halley's Comet return every couple of weeks. For Democrats, it has the potential to be, batting practice. This is no longer difficult to follow this story at all. Has nobody said to Senator McCain, hey, remember that guy Obama threw under the bus? Your version of him is still on your bus.
You would think that McCain is going to have to address this seriously or frontally at some point, because clearly Reverend Hagee is going to keep saying these things, and who knows what he's going to say next. And I don't see how McCain, having essentially accepted the endorsement and the association, can continue to pretend that Hagee's not out there. I mean, there is a kind of demagoguery gap between Democrats and Republicans. Republicans are much better at demagoguing these issues than Democrats are, because I guess Democrats remain tethered to things like objective fact and fairness or whatever. But by any standard, there are parallels here that are going to have to be addressed.
Well, it's not just that, but we like variety too. I mean, you're doing the same story every night gets a little redundant. But if the guy keeps doing a 180 every week, we get a new version of it every other week. Sure,
exactly.
let's just keep doing this. But if you are if you're a newspaper editor, what is the difference in how McCain and Obama are seen that puts Reverend Wright on front page and Reverend Hagee nowhere at all? Is it as simple as black and white?
Yes and no. There are actually two answers to that question. Why does Reverend Wright get front page and Hagee doesn't? I mean, what people tend to say is that, well, Reverend Wright was Obama's pastor. Well, that doesn't mean that they share the same views. That doesn't mean they see the world the same way. My two answers would be, number one, there's not enough diversity in the news media. There isn't enough diversity, racial, ethnic diversity, among the people who are making those decisions and exercising news judgment as to what deserves the front page and what deserves, top of the newscast. And second, the Post actually did a column on this very subject from the social science perspective, and it turns out that members of one group tend to look at members of a different group and think they have more in common with each other than they necessarily do. So, again, with the lack of diversity, people look at these two black guys, a pastor and Obama, and tend to think they have more in common, and views in common, and lots of things in common than they actually would necessarily have. So, there are dissertations on this subject.
Yeah, I guess. They may be saved for after the election. We'll see. Eugene Robinson of MSNBC and the Washington Post. Thank you, Gene.
Okay, Keith.